Good afternoon. The subcommittee will come to order. Without objection, the chair is authorized to declare recess at any time. Pursuant to Committee Rule 2E and House Rule 11, the chair announces that he may postpone roll call votes. Pursuant to notice, the Subcommittee on Energy meets to consider the following measure: H.R. 34, the Energy and Water Research Integration Act of 2019. We will now proceed with the markup. Good afternoon and welcome to the first markup of the Committee on Science, Space, and Technology of this 116th Congress. I'd like to thank Chairwoman Johnson and Ranking Member Lucas for introducing the Energy Water Research Integration Act of 2019, which addresses the energy-water nexus issues we are experiencing across our country today. I'm pleased our committee is starting off with bipartisan legislation. This legislation was examined in a hearing earlier this month, where the panel of expert witnesses discussed the unique intersection of energy and water and identified innovative solutions for improving their respective uses. The Energy and Water Research Integration Act of 2019 aims to decrease energy and water intensity when we use these resources by integrating important water production, use, and treatment considerations throughout DOE's relevant R&D programs. Reducing the water intensity of energy and the energy intensity of water production will help our environment and decrease utility bills for our constituents back home. Congress instructed the Department of Energy to create a program to address these issues over a decade ago in the Energy Policy Act of 2005, and in 2012 the Department created the Energy Water Nexus Crosscut Team. This team created a plan of future work and research for DOE, and the Department has held a series of roundtable discussions with stakeholders to ensure the issues were being addressed properly. Unfortunately, this team was disbanded at the beginning of this administration, and the administration recently launched a broad initiative that focuses on water production and announced 2 funding opportunities for desalination technologies. These are only components of the overarching energy-water nexus. Restoring comprehensive focus into this connection and sector is critical. Global energy consumption and water demand continue increasing, and they likely will for decades into the future. This demand is exacerbated by climate change and will evolve as this phenomenon continues in the years and decades ahead. Passing the Energy and Water Research Integration Act of 2019 would ensure that our nation becomes more efficient with its use of energy and water. This is necessary to benefit citizens across the nation, and I look forward to advancing this important bill out of our subcommittee today. I now recognize the ranking member, Mr. Weber, to present his opening remarks.
Thank you, Chairman Lamb, for the opportunity to speak on behalf of H.R. 34, the Energy and Water Research Integration Act of 2019. Good afternoon to all. This legislation authorizes DOE to integrate water considerations into energy research, development, and demonstration programs by advancing a diverse portfolio of innovative energy and energy efficiency technologies and research approaches, and to develop a strategic plan for the specific technical needs and milestones of these programs. A sustainable supply of both energy and water is essential to the maintenance of U.S. economic health, environmental stability, as well as national security. As we heard in expert testimony at Energy Subcommittee hearing earlier this month, it is clear that no matter what the future cross-section of the U.S. energy market looks like, we will need to develop an integrated approach to understanding these 2 critical and fundamentally intertwined systems. With its strong expertise in energy technologies and world-leading fundamental science capabilities, DOE is uniquely and perfectly suited to lead this research, which falls squarely within the administration's ongoing National Energy Water Nexus initiative. I believe that the Energy and Water Research Integration Act will provide U.S. researchers with greater opportunity to leverage DOE's one-of-a-kind capabilities in support of critical national goals that will help maintain U.S. leadership in sustainable energy technology for years to come. I want to thank the lead sponsors of this bill, Chairwoman Johnson and Ranking Member Lucas, for their leadership on this important legislation. I encourage my colleagues to support this bill, and Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Weber. We will now consider H.R. 34, the Energy and Water Research Integration Act of 2019. The clerk will report the bill.
H.R. 34, a bill to ensure consideration of water intensity in the Department of Energy's energy research, development, and demonstration.
Thank you. Without objection, the bill is considered as read and open to amendment at any point.
Chairman?
Yes?
I have an amendment. I haven't. Oh, I'm sorry.
Try that one more time.
Let's do
Without
this again.
objection, the bill is considered as read and open to amendment at any point. I now recognize Chairwoman Johnson to talk about her bill.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lamb. And let me thank Mr. Weber as well for his great opening statement. But I really do want to express my appreciation for having this bill as a markup from our subcommittee. We really do want to advance legislation that privatizes the relationship between water, one of the most valuable natural resources, and our energy systems. Energy plays an important role in the extraction, treatment, and transportation of water, and also used in many stages and types of electricity generation. In my home state of Texas, limited water supplies require us to balance the water needs between our large energy industry, agricultural communities, and rapidly growing population. I'm from one of the most rapid growing areas in the nation, and it's all inland. We have to build our water supply, contrary to where Mr. Weber lives, that's near the coast. Climate change will further strain this balance as more frequent droughts, heat waves, reduce water availability, and increase demand. That is why I'm pleased that these issues received serious attention during this subcommittee's hearing entitled The Energy Water Nexus, Drier Watts and Cheaper Drops. Just a few weeks ago, the hearing brought together esteemed experts, several from the great state of Texas, I might add, who reinforced our understanding that fresh water is a dwindling resource, and that we must more thoughtfully consume, and that great consideration is needed when planning the future of our energy systems and our water use. For these reasons, I've been working for a number of years in Congress to address this important issue through my work in developing the Energy and Water Research Integration Act. I'm excited to send this bill to the full committee today with my friend and co-sponsor, Ranking Member Lucas. The bill instructs the Department of Energy to incorporate the consideration of water use and treatment into all of its relevant research, development, and demonstration programs. It also provides direction to coordinate with other relevant agencies, academic institutions, non-governmental organizations, states, and industry to ensure that we're giving this issue sufficient attention, resources, and guidance moving forward. I want to thank Chairman Lamb once again for convening this markup, and I look forward to moving forward with this legislation that helps to address these critical issues at the nexus of energy and water. With that, I yield back. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairwoman Johnson, and I now recognize Ranking Member Lucas to present any remarks on the bill.
Thank you, Chairman Lamb. H.R. 34, the Energy Water Research Integration Act, aims to improve our understanding of the critical relationship between energy and water. The production of energy is dependent on reliable sources of water, and the distribution of clean water is dependent on the availability of energy. This is the energy water nexus of H.R. 34 seeks to improve. Water and energy management is often impacted by regional challenges and resources. In my home state of Oklahoma, agriculture is the single largest consumer of water and also contributes to the energy sector through the production of biofuels. Additionally, natural gas production, namely horizontal drilling and hydraulic fracking, require large volumes of water and can also produce water. The Energy Water Nexus R&D authorized in this bill can improve efficiency and production in both sectors. That's why I co-sponsored this legislation, and I'm committed to working with Chairwoman Johnson in moving this bill forward. However, I have a few concerns about the path we've taken to today's markup. At the beginning of this Congress, my colleagues on the Democratic side stressed their commitment to regular legislative order. Yet this bill, the first we are marking up on the subcommittee level, was never submitted to the Department of Energy for technical comments. Since the main action of H.R. 34 is to authorize DOE's energy research, development, and demonstration programs to consider water issues, this is an important step before we move ahead with this bill. As an original co-sponsor of this bill, I felt obligated to submit H.R. 34 to DOE for their technical comments, which we did earlier this week. And I would suggest to the chairwoman and the chairman of the subcommittee that perhaps before we move from, and I still support the markup in subcommittee, before we move on to full committee, that we should receive the department's feedback and have a chance to digest that. This legislation, and let me repeat this again, this legislation is useful and productive, and I am proud to be a co-sponsor. But if we as a committee want to stand by our priorities in our commitment to regular order, we must gather input from the relevant stakeholders, even if it requires a little extra time to do that. That said, I believe H.R. 34 will prioritize the critical relationship between energy and water systems and will help develop technologies to improve energy efficiency, the environment, and economic stability. And with that, Mr. Chairman, thank you, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you, Mr. Lucas. Does anyone else wish to be recognized? We will now proceed with the amendments in the order of the roster. The first amendment on the roster is a manager's amendment, and the clerk will report the amendment.
Amendment number 1, offered by Mr. Lamb. Page 5, line 10, strike.
I ask unanimous consent to dispense with the reading. Without objection, so ordered. I recognize myself for 5 minutes to explain the amendment. This amendment includes public utility commissions in the list of stakeholders that the Secretary of Energy shall consult when developing the strategic plan, as defined in the bill. It also includes public utility commissions in the list of non-federal members eligible to sit on the Energy Water Subcommittee of the Energy Advisory Board. This idea was recommended to the Energy Subcommittee staff by the National Association of Regulatory Utility Commissioners, as these commissions have an important role to play in coordination with privately held utilities. Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Recognize Mr. Lucas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This amendment provides technical changes suggested by stakeholders that include public utility commissions in the consultation and coordination process as DOE develops this research program. I appreciate the opportunity to work with the majority to identify these changes prior to today's markup and for their support in this important legislation. I encourage my colleagues to support this amendment. Yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on the amendment? All in favor, say aye. 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 Those opposed, say no. The ayes have it, and the amendment is agreed to. The second amendment on the roster is an amendment offered by the gentleman from Illinois. Are you ready to proceed with your amendment?
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will report the amendment.
Amendment number 2, offered by Mr. Lipinski. Page 2,
I ask unanimous consent that it be considered as read.
Without objection, so ordered. I now recognize the gentleman from Illinois for 5 minutes to explain the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's great to start out this subcommittee with a good bipartisan bill introduced by Chairwoman Johnson and joined by Ranking Member Lucas. I'm pleased to introduce this amendment, which adds text to include advancing technologies that also minimize deleterious impacts on water bodies. We are here today to discuss a bill regarding the nexus of water and energy. Many traditional energy-producing technologies rely on water to create steam, which turns turbines to generate electricity. However, once used in the plant, water then has to be released somewhere. Often this discharge is hot and sometimes contaminated by other pollutants, including heavy metals such as lead, arsenic, and mercury. The Union of Concerned Scientists has expressed concern that coal plants discharge wastewater up to 20 to 25 degrees Fahrenheit hotter than the body of water receiving it, creating thermal pollution. The EPA estimated in their 2013 environmental assessment for effluent limitations guidelines and standards for steam electric power generating point sources that coal-burning power plants release billions of pounds of pollution into the nation's waterways per year. I applaud the efforts by my colleagues to advance technologies to minimize water usage and energy, but I'm also concerned about the quality of water that is released in the generation of energy technologies. I hope that this amendment will allow us to also encourage advancement of technology that minimizes the harmful effects of energy generation on nearby bodies of water and protect groundwater sources. As we continue to use these forms of energy, I think it is wise just to take a look at what their impact is and what we can do to limit the impact. And so I ask my colleagues to support this amendment. I yield back.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on the amendment?
Mr. Chairman.
You are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This amendment provides for technical changes to this legislation. I appreciate the opportunity to work with the majority. I appreciate Mr. Lipinski identifying these changes prior to today's markup and for his support of the legislation. And I don't oppose this amendment and encourage my colleagues to support it. I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Weber. Any further discussion on the amendment? All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it, and the amendment is agreed to. The third amendment on the roster is an amendment offered by the gentleman from Texas. Are you ready to proceed with your amendment?
I am, Mr. Chairman. I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will report the amendment.
Amendment number 3, offered by Mr. Weber.
I ask unanimous consent to dispense with the reading. Without objection, so ordered.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
First, I'm quickly going to reserve a point of order on the amendment, and now I will recognize the gentleman from Texas for 5 minutes to explain the amendment.
Thank you, sir. And what do you got? What problem you have with my amendment? I'm just kidding you. My amendment addresses a topic we're all familiar with that remains relevant to the bill proposed today. HRES 109, or the Green New Deal resolution, proposes federal action that would be significantly damaging to the U.S. economy. My amendment spells out my concerns on the impact these policies would have on my constituents in Texas and in the nation if they were to be enacted. Let's review what we know about the Green New Deal. We know that housing, energy, and food prices for all individuals would see significant increases. Some estimates have placed the total cost of the Green New Deal at $93 trillion with a T dollars over 10 years. Looking further at that number, that would cost each household over $60,000 per year. Simply put, we cannot afford to place the burden of unreasonable and reckless energy policy on the hardworking taxpayers we represent. Irrational spending aside, we must also address the feasibility of the proposed solutions. Even just 2 proposals from this plan, requiring 100% of our power from zero-emission energy sources in 10 years and upgrading every existing building in the country would essentially flip the power switch off for American manufacturing, transportation, and agriculture industries, and the ability of the underlying bill to produce and improve the quality of water. And that's without the mandates for federal job guarantees and government-run health care that are proposed in the resolution. With only 15% of the proposals in the new Green Deal focused on environmental policies, it seems like the goal of this plan, intended or otherwise, is devastating our current workforce and infrastructure, not, and I repeat, not ensuring that we have clean air and clean water. Instead of sending our country into bankruptcy, if we want to responsibly address climate change, why shouldn't we invest in the basic research that can accelerate the development of innovative clean energy technologies in these United States? By encouraging cooperative research and collaboration across multidisciplinary groups, like what is proposed in H.R. 34, we can address environmental challenges, all the while improving the efficiency of energy production. Through targeted investments in critical research, America has the opportunity to lead the world in clean energy technology. And by partnering with American industry, we can achieve that ultimate goal of selling achievable, affordable, clean, and reliable energy technologies here at home and around the world. Now, I support this bill, Mr. Chairman, and as you know, I'm willing to withdraw this amendment if my colleagues on the other side are unable to support it. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I withdraw the amendment.
The amendment is withdrawn. Are there any other amendments? Okay. A reporting quorum being present, I move that the Committee on Science, Space, and Technology report H.R. 34 as amended to the full committee with the recommendation that the bill be approved. Those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. The ayes have it, and the bill is favorably reported. Without objection, nope. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid upon the table. I ask unanimous consent that the staff be authorized to make any necessary technical and conforming changes to the bill. Without objection, so ordered. Members will have 2 subsequent calendar days in which to submit supplemental, minority, or additional views on the measure. I want to thank the members for their attendance, and this concludes our subcommittee markup.